we've started the work of changing our economy, stabilising it, fixing its foundations, but also changing how it works for them. An employment bill that will finally make work pay, that will contribute to growth and raise living standards for working people. A direct response to the cost of living crisis that we were elected to tackle for them. Because, let me tell you, it's working people who pay the price when their government fails to deliver economic stability. And they've had enough of slow growth, stagnant living standards, and crumbling public services. They know that austerity is no solution, and they've seen the chaos when politicians let borrowing get out of control. We choose a different path. Honest, responsible, long-term decisions in the interests of working people. Because it's stability that means we can invest, and reform that will maximise that investment. £63 billion worth of investment secured from business 2 weeks ago. A record-breaking show of confidence in our plan for growth. That's investment that will create tens of thousands of jobs, good jobs, in every corner of the country. I know that some people recoil from the tough decisions we have to make to fix the foundations. But that investment, it didn't happen by accident. It's because businesses can see that we're fixing the foundation. Everyone who finds damp in their house knows they have to make a decision. Paint over it, or strip it out, pull off the plaster, and deal with it once and for all. So I will defend our tough decisions all day long. It's the right thing for our country, and it's the only way to get the investment that we need. Stability, investment, reform. That is how we will fix the NHS, rebuild Britain, and protect the payslips of working people, delivering on our mandate of change. And that's what the budget this week will be about. It's what every week of this government will be about. A budget for working people, from a government for working people. Because returning Britain to their service, that is our fundamental cause, and it never changes. It will also be the first budget delivered by a woman ever. That is a moment of pride. When Rachel Reeves stands up, she will be making history. And I can tell you, young women and girls across the country will be watching, they will look up, and they will notice. It will also be a budget which will show to the British people that we won't be distracted from our task, that we will stick to our long-term plan, run towards the tough decisions, rip off the short-term sticking plasters, so we can lead our country, finally but decisively, out of this pay more, get less doom loop, the low-growth Tory trap that for 14 years decimated public services, destroyed our economic foundations, and made working people pay the price. Now, mark my words, that era is now over. We are turning the page on Tory decline, closing the book on their austerity and chaos. Those days are done. They're behind us, and change is here. Of course, there will be tough decisions. Rebuilding Britain and delivering growth, that'll take the skills and effort of all of us. That's why this budget will also get Britain working. It will pave the way for reforms that tackle the root causes of economic inactivity and make sure that those who can work do work. As a Labour government, we will always help those who cannot support themselves. But the UK is the only G7 country where economic inactivity is still higher than it was before COVID. And that's not just bad for our economy. It's also bad for all those who are locked out of opportunity. So the Chancellor will announce £240 million in funding to provide local services that can help people back into work and the dignity that that brings. A Britain that works for working people, with all those who can playing their part. We will also be ruthless in clamping down on government waste, just as we will be ruthless on clamping down on tax avoidance. So the British people can see that every penny counts. Now, every single person in this country had to do that during the cost of living crisis. And government must be no different. And frankly, when we're asking broader shoulders to carry a higher burden on tax, that determination to be more productive and efficient in government, that's the very least their contribution deserves. And look, nobody wants higher taxes, just like nobody wants public spending cuts. But we have to be realistic about where we are as a country. This is not 1997, when the economy was decent, but public services were on their knees. And it's not 2010, where public services were strong, but the public finances were weak. We have to deal with both sides of that coin. These are unprecedented circumstances. But the budget the Chancellor will deliver on Wednesday will prevent devastating austerity in our public services and prevent a disastrous path for our public finances. That's the reality of what would happen if we'd stuck to Tory spending plans. And it's why we never, unlike the opposition in 97 and 2010, committed to the same spending plans. And yes, things are worse than we could possibly have expected during the election. And the budget will set that out very clearly. I mean, just look at the state of our prisons last week. Where's the Tory apology for that? Watching the prison population rise while they dithered. Too weak either to reform sentencing or build new places. Too scared to conduct a proper spending review, as we've done, because the damage they knew it would uncover. Oh, they knew. That's why they ran away from that exercise and called an early election instead. They knew our public services were broken. They knew there's a black hole in the public finances. £22 billion of unfunded spending this year, wasting the reserves 3 times over on Rwanda, asylum hotels, propping up a failing train companies. And that's before we even get to the long-term challenges ignored for 14 years. An economy riddled with weakness on productivity and investment. A state that needs urgent modernisation to face down the challenges of a volatile world. A country where people don't just lack faith in politicians to fix any of this, but also wonder whether Britain can, whether we still have the resources to move forward, or whether decline is now an incurable disease. They knew all of that, but I won't offer it as an excuse. I expect to be judged on my ability to deal with this. Politics is always a choice. So we won't hide from our decisions on Wednesday, or for that matter, any day. And besides, as I said 2 weeks ago at our International Investment Summit, we have huge assets in this country. leading positions in the industries of the future: clean energy, artificial intelligence, life sciences, the creative industries, a technical sector that is the envy of Europe, a heritage steeped in science, trade and innovation, and values deep in the bones of this nation, and which say to the world, this country is open for business. This country respects diversity and difference under the same flag. We are still the country known all around the world for our pragmatism and our creativity, the ingenuity and industry of our people. And so if we do grasp the nettle on our economy, if we do fix those foundations, stick to the values and deliver the change working people need, we won't just get through this. Better days are ahead. Seriously, this is an economic plan that will change long-term British growth for the better. We are tackling the biggest challenges in our economy. Higher investment, we're dealing with it. Planning, we're reforming it. The labour market, we're getting people back to work, but also making sure work pays. On competition, we're stripping out the needless regulation that holds back private investment. And all of this built on that foundation of economic stability. That is what fixing the foundations means, what delivering change means. And everyone in this country will benefit from this. Everyone can wake up on Thursday and see that a new future is being built, a better future. But I tell you now, what we can't do is waste any more time. Politics is a choice, and it's time to choose a clear path. It's time to embrace the harsh light of fiscal reality so we can come together behind a credible long-term plan. It's time we ran towards the tough decisions, because ignoring them set us on this path of decline. It's time we ignored the populist chorus of easy answers, because we saw what happens if you reject the constraints of economic stability. And we're never going back to that. That is our choice. Stability to prevent chaos. Borrowing that will drive long-term growth. Tax rises to prevent austerity and rebuild public services. We choose to protect working people. We choose to get the NHS back on its feet. We choose to fix the foundations, reject decline, and rebuild our country with investment. And whilst I'm sure you understand, I can't get into the individual measures before Wednesday, I will say this. If people want to criticise the path we choose, that's their prerogative. But let them spell out a different direction. If they think the state has grown too big, let them tell working people which public services they would cut. If they think tax rises are unfair, let them tell working people which taxes they'd raise instead. If they don't see our long-term investment in infrastructure as necessary, let them explain to working people how they would grow the economy for them. And if they think that taxes are too high, but they don't want to cut public spending, let them tell working people why the lessons of Liz Truss no longer apply. Because I've said it before, and I'll say it again, the time is long overdue for politicians in this country to level with you honestly about the trade-offs this country faces, to stop insulting your intelligence with the chicanery of easy answers. Working people know that hard choices are necessary. They lived through the Liz Truss episode. They lived through the cost of living crisis. So they know that the things they want from us, protecting their living standards, rebuilding our nation, fixing our public services, they know that this can only be achieved alongside economic stability. There are no shortcuts. No, what they want to see on Wednesday is a country on a different path, making different choices. They don't want to pay the price anymore in times of crisis because our economic foundations are weak. And they don't want to see the proceeds of growth, which could serve their family, their community, their public services, instead always serving those at the top. They want change, and that is what they will get, because that is the mandate we're elected to deliver, the only path consistent with our driving purpose to return Britain to the service of working people. That purpose also runs through the priorities we set out in our manifesto, the national missions, which capture the hope working people have for the future of our country. And look, there's a paradox in politics at the moment. All around the world, traditional values, democratic values, values that have underpinned the way countries like ours have operated for years, the pragmatism that is part of our identity, it's under attack. Why? Because people, working people most of all, have lost faith it can still deliver for their family. And yet at the same time, what people want from politics, that hasn't changed. People want a stable economy. They want their country to be safe, their borders secure, economic security, national security, border security. Those are still the foundations everything rests upon. And then beyond that, they want exactly what those national missions promise. A growing economy, safer streets, clean British energy in their home, opportunities for their children, and an NHS that is there when they need it. I know populism preys on the fears that people have, that these things no longer belong to them. But I've never felt that the right response is to ignore those concerns, rather than showing that they can still be delivered. So I'm never going to pick just one of those missions and say that's everything, because every single one of them matters to working people. And for that same reason, I will never turn away from them either. In fact, because I know that actions speak louder than words, because I expect to be judged by the British people. In coming weeks, on every mission, we will publish clear ambitions for this Parliament. And we will also track our progress against them. So every single person in this country can see exactly how we measure up to the things that matter to them. After all, we have 5 years and a big mandate. So working people will not accept any excuses. They want to see us build 1.5 million homes, make sure a record number of children start school ready to learn, raise living standards so there's more cash in their pockets, restore confidence that crime will be punished, guaranteed neighbourhood policing in every community, make sure our energy system is more secure by harnessing clean British energy, accelerating towards net zero. And on our NHS, they want us to cut waiting times dramatically to meet the 18-week target that is still the best benchmark of an NHS that's back on its feet, facing the future, and once more, a beacon of pride to the world. These are my priorities for change, and I won't change course. The budget will light the way, and we will use the power of government, stability, investment and reform, partnership across the whole of society, galvanised by clear objectives, to deliver on the priorities of the British people. The foundations fixed, public services renewed, a country rebuilt by investment, released from decline, returned once more to the service of working people. Now, that is the course we set this week. That is the driving purpose of this government, and that is the change that we will deliver. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm now going to take a number of questions from the media, and I think I'm starting with Vicky at the BBC. Vicky, I think I can just about see you out there.
Hi, Vicky Young, BBC. You're promising to be honest with people, but isn't this turning out to be a budget of sneaky tax rises? You're putting up employers' taxes, which will be passed on to the working people that you say you want to protect.
We made clear manifesto promises to working people about not raising VAT, their national insurance, and income tax, and we intend to keep to those promises. But the purpose of the decisions that we're making this week are to ensure that we do stabilise our economy and ensure that we've got the foundations to rebuild our country. And that is vitally important. We will never get the investment into this country that we need if we don't stabilise our economy. It's a vital first step. And that's why I said it's a bit like people, and everyone will have had this experience of damp or cracks in your house, and you take a decision. Am I going to paint over it and hope for the best? The same thing always happens. The damp comes back, the crack's still there. Or do it properly from the outset. We're going to do it properly. We're going to fix the foundations. That's why we'll take the difficult decisions that we need to take on Wednesday and rebuild our country. Thank you. I've got Harry from ITV.
Thank you, Prime Minister. You talk about being honest and being realistic. Shouldn't you be honest that for many working people, the amount they will pay in tax will be going up after your budget? And if you can't be honest about that, then shouldn't the public have every right to feel let down and to lose faith in your government after this budget?
Let me be clear. So far as working people are concerned, I'm concerned with what's in their payslip and making sure that there is no more tax in their payslip. And that matters to people because we made that promise to them. And honesty is really important here because we're facing really difficult decisions. And I'm not prepared to continue with the fiction that we've had previously over the last 14 years. Where there are problems, we'll identify them and we will fix them. And because we are fixing them, we will have the foundation to rebuild our country. And that's what I mean by levelling with people. Not pretending there are easy answers. And that's why I say, for those that want to criticise our course, the path that we've chosen, let them tell us what they would do, what different path that they would take to fix our country. Which public services would they cut? Which other taxes would they raise? Because we can't have this fiction. You can lower taxes, spend more on public services without making any changes. That's what got us into the problem in the first place. Thank you. I've got Sam from Sky.
Sam Coates, Sky News. Thank you, Prime Minister. This is going to be a big tax-raising budget. Are you certain that you're front-loading the pain? And if so, can you rule out more big tax hikes in future budgets? Because there's a fear that we're just going to go through all of this again in a year's time when, for instance, you realise that you haven't got a plan for how to pay for things like social care.
Well, let me take that head on, Sam, because I fundamentally believe that we need to run towards the tough decisions. I fundamentally believe we have to fix the foundations so that we can build a better future. And that's tough. That's difficult. But that's why we're taking the decision on Wednesday to do it, because it's the right thing to do, and it's the right thing for our country. And I think and believe that it will also allow investment to come in, secure that we're a government that's prepared to do the tough things to stabilise the economy. Now, 2 weeks ago, we got £63 billion worth of investment in our international summit. That's an unprecedented amount of money. And many of those investing said it's because they've got confidence in the way that we're approaching the economy. That doesn't happen by accident. So if you want a sort of proof point, if you like, that the tough decisions we're making to stabilise the economy do trigger the investment that we need, I would point to that investment summit, and I'm absolutely confident that other money will follow in. And that's measured in good, well-paid jobs across the country, which is what we were elected to deliver for working people. Thank you, Sam. I've got Chris at GB News.
Prime Minister, thank you. On Friday in County Durham, a pensioner and former miner called Billy Pounder told GB News how he moves his heater every day from room to room to keep warm. He blamed the withdrawal of the winter fuel allowance for this. He said to us, "I wish I hadn't voted Labour. There are millions like Billy Pounder out there worried about your budget. What would you say to Billy Pounder? And was he wrong to vote for you?"
Well, what I would say is that I do understand the concerns that people have. I genuinely do. And that is why we are protecting the most vulnerable with pension credit and making sure that everybody who's entitled to pension credit takes up that pension credit, which obviously guarantees them the payment. But we are also fixing the foundation, stabilising the economy. And what that allows us to do is to commit absolutely to the triple lock. And that means that for millions of pensions next year, they go up by up to £475 on top of the £900 or so this year. And that's why I can say that every pensioner will be better off under a Labour government that takes the difficult decisions to stabilise the economy. Thank you, Chris. I've got Dave from the Mirror.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Dave Boat from the Daily Mirror. Prime Minister, it's been reported over the weekend that the £2 cap on bus fares across England is going to be scrapped in the budget. What's your assessment on the impact this would have on working people who would expect the Labour Party to be on their side? And just as an addition to that, if I may, do you think Mike Ainsbury should resign?
We're going for one question, but otherwise we'll start but let me just deal with both those issues. Look, on the £2 bus fare, first thing to say is the Tories only funded that till the end of 2024. And therefore that is the end of the funding in relation to the £2 capped fare. I do know how much this matters, particularly in rural communities where there's heavy reliance on buses. And that's why I'm able to say to you this morning that in the budget we will announce there'll be a £3 cap on bus fares to the end of 25, because I know how important it is. So that'll be there in the budget on Wednesday. On Mike Amesbury, look, I've seen the video footage. It's shocking. We moved very swiftly to suspend him as a member and as a member of Parliament. There is now a police investigation, and in the circumstances, you'll appreciate there's not much more I can say about that. Thank you very much, but we are going to revert to one question each. This is a slippery slope otherwise. I've got Kieran at The Guardian.
Thank you. Kieran Stacey from The Guardian. The Labour MP Jazz Atwell was revealed today to be the owner of a failing children's care home. Can I ask what reassurances you've sought from him about that, and whether there was any conflict of interest when that care home won contracts from the council, of which Jazz Atwell was the leader?
Yeah, look, Kieran, thank you for that. I'm not across the full details of this, although I've seen the story. And what I would say is that I would expect anyone in a situation like that to take their responsibilities seriously. Thank you. Lucy from the FT.
Thank you, Lucy Fisher from the Financial Times. Prime Minister, your Chancellor has confirmed that she's changing the debt rules to borrow more to invest in capital expenditure. Do you accept this is a move that pushes up interest rates? And what's your message to people with mortgages or debt that will become more expensive as a result? Thank you.
I'm not going to preempt exactly what the Chancellor will say on Wednesday, but I have been really clear that we have to move to a situation where we invest in the future of this country, where we invest to ensure that we get the better jobs that we need, we have the infrastructure that we need. And so part of what we will say on Wednesday is first how we're going to fix the foundations and deal with the problem that we've inherited, but secondly how then we rebuild the country. And investment is an important part of that story. Precisely how that will take place will be set out in detail on Wednesday. I do not accept the proposition that it'll have an impact on interest rates. Thank you. Max from The Times.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Max Kennex from The Times. I'd like you to press you on a previous question. You've made very clear today that to take on the inheritance, there'll need to be tax rises. But will this be the last Labour budget in which you'll need to raise taxes? And if you can't answer that, how can people have optimism that there will be better times ahead if you won't rule out further massive tax rises in budgets?
Yeah, look, thank you for the question. We are fixing the foundations in this budget. So that is the purpose of this budget, to take the difficult decisions now. And nobody wants tax rises, least of all me. So we will do the hard work in this budget to allow us then to rebuild the country. I can't give you a cast iron guarantee that never again in any budget will there be any adjustment to tax, because we just don't know what's round the corner. We've lived through in the last 5 or 6 years, Ukraine, COVID, etc. But I can tell you that as we stand here now going into this budget, it is our intention to take the tough decisions here and now up front in the hope that we can then build or rebuild the country on that stable foundation. So you can take from that that the tough stuff is coming in this budget. We're going to scrub this down into this budget, but I'm going to resist the temptation to say that at no point ever will there ever be any adjustment to anything else in the future. The purpose of this is to ensure we do take the tough decisions now, stabilise the economy and create the conditions for investment and growth, which I think we are doing, as we've evidenced from the money that's already coming in. So that's the approach, take the tough decisions now and do it at this budget. So you can expect to see pretty well all of that in this budget. Thank you. I've got Jack from The Sun.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Jack Ellison from The Sun. Every day, millions of people across the country will get in their cars and go to work. So would any hike to fuel duty on Wednesday be a direct hit on the working people that you claim to champion?
Well, I know this is a particular concern to your readers, and I'm not going to preempt what happens on Wednesday, but obviously this is an issue that comes up at every budget, and you'll see how we deal with it at this budget. But I do understand how important it is. I understand what you're putting to me, and I know how important it is to you, your readers, and others. Thank you. I've got Kamal from the Mail.
Kamal Jaffer, Daily Mail. Prime Minister, new polling this morning suggests that the majority of voters would prefer Wednesday's priority to be lower taxes ahead of investment in public services. Do you feel your government's priorities are out of step with the public mood?
No. I think for too long we've pretended that you can lower tax and spend more on your public services, and you can't. And it's about time. And it's about time we faced up to that. Almost everybody knows the NHS is broken. We're going to fix it. We're going to put it back on its feet and make it something we can be proud of again. That's the path we're choosing. And that's what we'll deliver for working people. But what we're not going to do is continue the fiction that's got us here in the first place. The pretense that you can always have lower taxes and that your public services will run properly. Because the last 14 years have shown that is completely and utterly untrue. And people voted for change and will deliver it. I've got Luke from LBC.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Luke Shanahan, LBC. You've said that people should judge you on whether or not they feel better off within 5 years' time. Is that how long it will take to feel positive effects of what you're doing now?
No. The £63 billion in investment that came in 2 weeks ago is about jobs that will be seen around the country, jobs which we will ensure can be put in place as quickly as possible. The money that we will spend on the NHS will make sure that NHS is getting better straight away, the first steps that we've set out. What I was saying is I expect to be judged by what we've delivered after 5 years. We've got a terrible inheritance. I think everybody can see that. It was bad enough with what we did know before the election. It's even worse now we've had a look at the books. Even worse. And we're entitled to spell that out. But as I said in my speech, it's now to us to deliver the change. And we will deliver that change. That's why we're taking these tough decisions. And yes, I expect to be judged on that at the end of this Parliament. Judged by whether we've made people better off. Judged by whether the NHS is functioning better. judged by whether our public services are better at the end of a Labour government of 5 years than they were when we started. That's why we're taking these difficult decisions. And I'm very happy, would expect to be, judged by the British public on whether we've delivered on that. And every day I wake up focused on that delivery, because we were elected into government to change, and I came into politics to change lives for the better. It's the only reason I changed my career, to come into politics to make lives better. And therefore I'll happily be judged on whether we're able to do so. Our path sets the course for that change. Thank you. And then I've got Mark from the Express and Star.
Mark Andrews, Express and Star. Thank you, Prime Minister. You've spoken a great deal about growth and investment. There's been a service published today by the Black Country Chambers of Commerce saying that confidence in small businesses in the Black Country has fallen since the election, that investors, the companies that were planning to make investments in creating jobs, have decided to have a wait-and-see approach, store their investment because of fears of what's going to be in the budget. What would you say to give confidence to small, medium-sized businesses in areas such as the Black Country, what you will do for them to encourage them to invest and create jobs in the region?
Yeah, well, first let me acknowledge how important small businesses are to our economy. There are many, many small businesses. They're the backbone of our country and our economy. They make a huge contribution. And therefore, it's very important that we take steps that make it easier for small business, not harder for small business, and we intend to do so, not just in the budget, but also more broadly. There's the wider questions we're taking on in relation to planning, in relation to regulation, and the inward investment, the £63 billion, which will then go alongside other investment, including investment of small businesses. So let me acknowledge how important they are, and let me reassure them that we intend to make it easier for small businesses, not more difficult for small businesses, because we know how central they are to our economy. Thank you all very much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you.